Originali.
Eccoci arrivati al primo appuntamento del mese di dicembre con lingue originali e in particolare con quello dedicato alla letteratura in lingua inglese. Il nostro Marco Piovaz, al quale cederò linea e microfono fra poco, ha scelto Christmas Eve, un brano tratto da The Sketchbook di Washington Irving. The Sketchbook contiene 2 short stories che hanno reso Washington Irving veramente molto famoso e che sono anche considerate i primi esempi di storie brevi della letteratura americana. The Legend of Sleepy Hollow e Rip Van Winkle. Ma probabilmente non tutti sanno che contiene anche delle Christmas Stories, di cui Christmas Eve è un esempio, il cui scopo è quello di illustrare le principali tradizioni natalizie inglesi ai cittadini degli Stati Uniti d'America. E allora, primo estratto da Christmas Eve, a sua volta tratto da The Sketchbook di Washington Irving. Linea e microfono a Marco Piovaz.
It was a brilliant moonlight night, but extremely cold. Our chairs whirled rapidly over the frozen ground. The postboy smacked his whip incessantly, and a part of the time his horses were on a gallop. "He knows where he's going," said my companion, laughing, "and is eager to arrive in time for some of the merriment and good cheer of the servants' hall. My father, you must know, is a bigoted devotee of the old school, and prides himself upon keeping up something of old English hospitality. He is a tolerable specimen of what you will rarely meet with nowadays, in its purity, the old English country gentleman. For our men of fortune spend so much of their time in town, and fashion is carried so much into the country, that the strong, rich peculiarities of ancient rural life are almost polished away. My father, however, from early years, took honest Pitcham for his textbook, instead of Chesterfield. He determined in his own mind that there was no condition more truly honourable and enviable than that of a country gentleman on his paternal lands, and therefore passes the whole of his time on his estate. He is a strenuous advocate for the revival of the old rural games and holiday observances, and is deeply read in the writers, ancient and modern, who have treated on the subject. Indeed, his favourite range of reading is among the authors who flourished at least 2 centuries since, who, he insists, wrote and thought more like true Englishmen than any of their successors. He even regrets sometimes that he had not been born a few centuries earlier, when England was itself and had its peculiar manners and customs. As he lives at some distance from the main road, in rather a lonely part of the country, without any rival gentry near him, he has that most enviable of all blessings to an Englishman, an opportunity of indulging the bent of his own humour without molestation. Being representative of the oldest family in the neighbourhood, and great part of the peasantry being his tenants, he is much looked up to, and in general is known simply by the appellation of the Squire, a title which has been accorded to the head of the family since time immemorial. I think it best to give you these hints about my worthy old father to prepare you for any eccentricities that might otherwise appear absurd. We had passed for some time along the wall of a park, and at length the chairs stopped at the gate. It was in a heavy, magnificent old style, of iron bars fancifully wrought at top into flourishes and flowers. The huge square columns that supported the gate were surmounted by the family crest. Close adjoining was the porter's lodge, sheltered under dark fir trees and almost buried in shrubbery. The postboy rang a large porter's bell, which resounded through the still frosty air, and was answered by a distant barking of dogs, with which the mansion house seemed garrisoned. An old woman immediately appeared at the gate. As the moonlight fell strongly upon her, I had a full view of a little primitive dame, dressed very much in the antique taste, with a neat kerchief and stomacher, and her silver hair peeping from under a cap of snowy whiteness. She came curtsying forth, with many expressions of simple joy at seeing her young master. Her husband, it seemed, was up at the house keeping Christmas Eve in the servants' hall. They could not do without him, as he was the best hand at a song and story in the household. My friend proposed that we should alight and walk through the park to the hall, which was at no great distance, while the chairs should follow on. Our road wound through a noble avenue of trees, among the naked branches of which the moon glittered as she rolled through the deep vault of a cloudless sky. The lawn beyond was sheeted with a slight covering of snow, which here and there sparkled as the moonbeams caught a frosty crystal, and at a distance might be seen a thin transparent vapour stealing up from the low grounds and threatening gradually to shroud the landscape. My companion looked around him with transport. "How often," said he, "have I scampered up this avenue on returning home on school vacations? How often have I played under these trees when a boy? I feel a degree of filial reverence for them, as we look up to those who have cherished us in childhood. My father was always very scrupulous in exacting our holidays and having us around him on family festivals. He used to direct and superintend our games with the strictness that some parents do the studies of their children. He was very particular that we should play the old English games according to their original form, and consulted all books for precedent and authority for every merry disport. Yet I assure you, there never was pedantry so delightful. It was the policy of the good old gentleman to make his children feel that home was the happiest place in the world, and I value this delicious home feeling as one of the choicest gifts a parent could bestow." We were interrupted by the clamour of a troop of dogs of all sorts and sizes, mongrel, puppy, whelp and hound, and curs of lower degree, that, disturbed by the ring of the porter's bell and the rattling of the chaise, came bounding open-mouthed across the lawn. "The little dogs and all, Tray, Blanche and Sweetheart, see, they bark at me," cried Bracebridge, laughing. At the sound of his voice, the bark was changed into a yelp of delight, and in a moment he was surrounded and almost overpowered by the caresses of the faithful animals.
Come sempre grazie a Marco Piovaz per la magistrale lettura. Marco è un italiano con tanti anni di esperienza di vita e professionale a Londra, che io, con rispetto per tutti gli amici inglesi, dico che parla inglese esattamente come loro. Lingue Originali, appuntamento con la letteratura in lingua inglese il venerdì alle 22, ma vi ricordo anche gli altri due appuntamenti. Quello con Nadia Meroni per quanto riguarda la letteratura in lingua tedesca il sabato, e quello con Barbara Marchand per la lettura in lingua francese la domenica, sempre alle ore 22. L'intera raccolta la trovate in podcast. Alla prossima puntata.
Lingue Originali.